Nuestro siguiente presentador es el señor Pramod Goel, que es un speaker muy especial para mí. And is a very special person to me because I saved his life. But I will not tell you that story today. So, please, Pramod, come in. El señor Pramod trabaja con la compañía Plasticway. La compañía Plasticway se destaca dentro de los aspectos relacionados con el trato del paciente. Me consta que tiene buenas relaciones con varias compañías aquí en Panamá, así que no creo que se vaya a sentir como un extraño. You're not going to feel like a stranger here because you have friends here, you have clients here, and that is going to be good for your speech.
For inviting us here and giving us the opportunity to share our experiences, what we have learned from different parts of the world in working in the medical tourism industry, trying to decipher a lot of things that are going on around the world. I've known, as Luis said, for the last 2 to 3 years, and I've observed what he has done here with the Panasalud in terms of consolidating the Panamanian market, which has not been done in a number of places. So it's a very unique opportunity that he has created within the country, and it's very pleasing to see the progress and the interest that is coming up from the medical tourism perspective. And especially what I learned in last day or so since we have been, everybody is eager to learn what's going on in the industry. Rather than jumping into the fray of medical tourism, people have desire to learn what's going on, how to do things right, and that's very encouraging. Just we have a saying when the baby is born, the baby needs to crawl before they walk, before they run, before they do something else. So this is a very critical steps that we go through in the medical tourism area. Is we need to understand what's going on, how to make things happen right, so that before we expand. As Andy also said, if you're looking for a quick win, quick solution, quick result, don't expect that. It will take time to build a good program overall. So what I want to talk about is our personal experiences over the last 5 to 6 years in the field of medical tourism, and how we see this industry having a parallelism with other industries. You take a transportation industry, airline industry, we talked Toyota Way yesterday, manufacturing industry, you take into other regulatory industries that are going on. There's a lot of things that are parallel. So we can learn from the progress that has been made in different industries and adapt to this industry, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel from that perspective. So what I want to talk about is evolution of medical tourism, is where we are coming from, how is the industry evolving over time, and where we need to go. So once I selected a topic of cottage industry to corporate industry, I realized the cottage industry is not a common term in Latin America. So I'll try to explain that, what's going on. What I want to cover in my presentation today is give you a perspective of industry overview, what's going on in the industry overall. We are dealing with about 30 different countries. We are seeing what's going on overall at a global level, our experiences that we are sharing from that perspective. Understand the global market. Okay, Latin America is doing some things, but there are a lot of other activities that are going on, as Andy said. Globally, there are a lot of activities going on. So why not we just not learn only from Latin America what Latin America is doing right or wrong, but also learn what's going on globally, because that's going to give us a different perspective of things, what people are doing right or wrong. I'm going to quite a bit emphasize on infrastructure. This is a big area, big gap I see in the industry, is everybody is going after getting the next patient, but not investing time and money to develop the right infrastructure for the organization. We're going to talk about sustainability model. Again, most of the programs that I've seen today are very focused on immediate results rather than creating a very sustainable program that's going to last as a way of life rather than just a quick win today. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to give you a very quick overview of who Placid Way is. So cottage to corporate, what does it mean? What is cottage industry? Cottage industry is, you will see generally is a small scale industry, which is generally not very organized. People are come up with a new idea, they want to implement the new idea, and they want to make a living of it. We saw in pottery industry or some handicraft industry, things are done in a limited way, but very, very enthusiastic, because the entrepreneur is very excited about what they're creating, what they're making, right? But again, that's how I characterize medical tourism right now. There are a lot of individuals who are working in this industry. They're very excited about it, but it's not structured. So the question is, if we are going to continue to remain in that mindset of a cottage industry, can we go forward? Can we survive? So what is corporate world? So how do you, basically, what is corporate world? Why do we talk about corporate world? Corporate world, what do we see? There's a transparency, there's an integration of people, processes, systems. Whenever you look into an organization, a corporate, you talk not about your passion of doing something, you talk about how things are systematic, how things are moving from one direction to another direction. There's an infrastructure in place. You take a hospital, for example, hospital has an infrastructure. They have people dedicated to specific functions of a company. Their process is defined. If I go for admissions, what happens next. If you're doing a surgery, there's a process, there's a systematic structure. So also the approach in the corporate is going to be not exclusive, but integrated approach of everything we do. So the question is, we have to transition from a small scale industry, or the mindset of a small scale industry, to a organized industry. So why is it relevant here? Panama is coming up in the medical tourism program. Some of you are doing it already. The question is we have to really think, if you want to go the next step, if we want to compete in the world, we have to really think about what and how we're going to structure ourselves. So why do we need to move? So far what we have seen in the medical tourism industry, it has happened. 80% of the solution is okay. Things are not perfect, fine, let it go. In this, so far what we have seen is people who are already aware of the solution are coming and saying, I want this. I want to go somewhere else to save money or seek alternative medicines or something like that. So people are taking more initiatives more than anything else. But what we see as we go forward, the next generation of medical tourism, people are going to be demanding more. As the medical tourism become a global phenomena, it becomes mainstream. People will say, I don't want 80% of the solution. I want a perfect solution. You will not go buy a defective car, correct? You want car to work perfectly. When iPhone came, there were a lot of flaws. Phone didn't work properly. But now, as it went into the mainstream, things need to be perfect. That's where people are going to adopt. That's where they're going to seek the solution. That's what they will say, yes, this is a viable solution. So coming from America right now, the question is, whenever we talk about medical tourism, people say, are you crazy? You want to go abroad for surgery? That's the first question is asked. Second question is legal aspects, right? What happens if something goes wrong? Who's going to pay for it? What is my recourse? Without anything, these are the first two questions that comes in mind, irrespective of that. So the industry is not in mainstream because so far the solution has been so-called imperfect. So we have to move from that imperfect solution to a perfect solution when it's going to be adopted by a general population. Again, we're going to go and talk more about the demand side, how we're going to create that demand, because demand is very limited at this point. In order to get the demand properly functioning to go to the mainstream, we have to act differently. We have to do things differently. We have to behave differently. We have to present a solution differently. So it's very critical for us to change the mindset that we have, that we need first patient or we need X number of patients, to a very structured approach. That's when we are going to grow. That's when we are going to see an evolution. That's when we're going to experience something. So let's talk about the industry. Over the last several years, I've talked to maybe 2,000 or 3,000 medical providers from around the world. And one of the typical things, the first thing when we have discussions with a medical provider, they say, this is a common theme. I'm the best medical provider. Nobody says I'm the bad one, right? Everybody says I'm the best one. They say I provide the top quality. You know, nobody says I have a mediocre quality or bad quality. Everybody is saying top quality. I have a cheapest cost compared to, of course, everybody's comparing to American prices. Nobody's comparing to local or regional prices. Everything is compared to American prices. In the most desirable location, I'm in Cancun or Thailand or India or you pick a country, the desirable location is there. And they say, I just need the international patients. Just send me patients. Now, if just analyze these factors and understand your own hospital, when you're presenting your hospital or clinic or your services, are you saying the same thing? And if I'm a consumer, as Andy's lead to, you have to become consumer-centric, consumer patient-centric. If I'm a consumer, I'm a patient, and I'm looking into 10 different websites or 10 different solutions, and everybody's saying the same thing, how do I choose? What do I do? Who do I go to? There's no differentiator between one versus the other. Everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's saying, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. What is the differentiator? It's not an easy question to answer. So we have to really, as we go in the medical tourism, we have to really think beyond the quality, the service, the cost. What is your value proposition? You have to really think and nail down how you're going to differentiate yourself in this market. It's a crowded market, very, very crowded market. So the questions that are being asked to me also from that perspective is there a magic bullet? I want to attract medical tourism. Is there a magic bullet? Give me I need patients. I need X number of patients per month. How can you deliver it? Rather than questions that needs to be asked, nobody's asking is, how can I create a sustainable program? What is the infrastructure requirement? What is the need of a patient? Why they will travel? So nobody's asking the question of the need, the demand. Rather than the question is being asked, how can I get 10 people? How can I get, if you go to India, it's a different story. The magnitude is different. They say, how can I get 100 people a month, right? The magnitude is very different. So the key factor we need to understand and ask these questions, why, when, where, how, unless you go deep into the understanding of your consumer, we may not able to be successful in this business. So I will invite you to think about it, your customer base. Everybody's thinking about, whenever we talk about medical tourism in Latin America, we automatically think about Americans. Is that the right market? I was in Colombia, rightly so. They identified the market may not be an American market. Our market may be the Caribbean market, maybe the Central American market, maybe South American market. There's opportunities. America is not the only opportunity. In a globalized care, we think things are different. So we have to focus from a different angle. So again, we have seen a lot of numbers being thrown around. I'm not going to dwell on the numbers because that's not the point of my presentation. So the question is, a lot of people will ask, so if these are so many problems, why should I get into medical tourism? Right? I mean, it's obviously I'm doing very well locally. Why do I need another source of income or another international patient? Why should I go through these troubles of doing this thing if this is a crowded industry? It's a very legitimate question to be asked. Yes, as industry projects, this business could be $100 billion business. Right? It's a big, magnitude is big. We see things now that are happening around us is becoming a globalized world, so there is an opportunity. But at the same time, there's a big challenge. When there's a big opportunity, there's a big challenge. We see that right now, as we speak, there are about 60 countries trying to get this market space. Right? They are all saying there could be about 40,000 plus medical providers or service providers in medical tourism industry who are saying, I want a piece of this dollar, right? So there's a huge competition. When there's a huge competition in a small market, supposedly big market, but demand is still small, what happens? It's a price war. They're competing against each other. We had a controlled study done last year where we presented a JCI certified hospital versus a non-JCI certified hospital, and we made the price difference as low as $100, the difference of service. And that two solutions were presented to an American patient, and we thought definitely the patient, since the price difference was so little, $100 difference, patient will definitely choose a JCI certified hospital. But unfortunately, patient chose $100 cheaper. So there's this limited logic in that area, right? What we are trying to, what we are seeing is because again, there's no differentiator, there's no proper definition of what's going on. There's a huge competition, and hence price is becoming the differentiator. Because if 10 people or 100 people are saying the same thing, I'm the best, how does a person choose? From the consumer point of view, you may have 20 different logic of why you're the best, but from the consumer point of view, what they are thinking is the same if you're not presenting them their own solution. So what are the challenges in the medical tourism industry? The challenges we see, there's a rapid rise in local, regional, and global competition. Local, look into Panama, there's a competition among the hospitals, among the clinics, among the doctors. There's regionally, in Latin America, we see competition. So it's not Panama is the only one. Again, as Andy said, there could be 10 or 20 Latin American countries that are competing in this industry, going for the same patient base, right? Then globally, India, Thailand, Turkey, these countries are coming up and trying to attack the same patient. So from a patient perspective, they don't have one solution. They have huge amount of opportunities. They can go anywhere, right? There's more supply than demand at this point. What does it mean? It's supply and demand, right? The whole economy, any business works on supply and demand concept. So we need to really understand what the demand is so that we can balance it with the supply, or vice versa. Right? So right now we see there's a glut of people who wants to participate in medical tourism, but not understanding the demand is an erratic solution that is being provided. So we have to come up with an equilibrium between supply and demand. That's when the economics is going to go up. That's when the demand and the process will go up. Lack of business infrastructure. Again, we talked about cottage to corporate. We see that there's a lack of understanding and infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure in medical tourism, again, do you have the right people? Do you have the processes defined? Do you have the right systems to support that initiative? So what is going on is there are a lot of challenges that we have to come across and understand them and act on it so that when you start, and if you start a medical tourism program, you're going with the right expectations. That will be a very key factor, is your expectations are right. So let's now move from the challenges to what is going on worldwide. We are living in a very different world. 10 years ago, things were very different than today. There's a dramatic, technology has changed the world, so as to say. With a click of a button, I can buy anything from China today. I can hire people in India, Thailand, anywhere in the world. I can hire people. I can buy product from anywhere. I can transfer money to anybody, anywhere. So what is happening that with social media, with technological innovations, with travel availability, worldwide we are getting very, very connected. There's limited barriers now. We can do things. This is creating a huge awareness in the consumer side. So the consumer has become a lot more powerful. We had a discussion yesterday. I was giving an example of a Ford Motor Company. In '99, I was working as a consultant to Ford Motor Company, and their challenge was when the customer was walking into the showroom, customer knew more than the salesperson in the showroom because they had research what's going on. Parallelism we drew, now when a consumer is coming to a medical center, they know what treatment they want because they have done the research. They know the statistics, they know the outcomes of that particular procedure, right? So we have to really understand the consumer base, which is a lot different than how it used to be even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And where it's going to go is another 10 years. You will see another technological innovation because technology is developing so rapidly and the consumer is becoming so much powerful. Then we have to really think about how the next generation is going to come, where it's going to go. So we cannot just sit where we are. We have to think what's going to happen in the next 10 years. So I don't want to look into past of what has happened into medical tourism. We need to look into what's going to happen in the future, because that's a different landscape altogether. When you look into globalized world, also, what are the influencers of medical travel? For example, economics. Economics is a big factor, right? I want to travel for something cheap. I want to manufacture a product in China because it's cheaper. I want to outsource my IT function in India because it's cheaper. These are the factors that people are looking more and more from that perspective. Culture. Culture has a big thing to say. Originally, people were saying, I'm going to remain in my culture because I don't understand the other culture, hence I'm not going to integrate. But now, people are adopting different cultures. They're accepting different cultures. Specialization, the very big thing. Now people are becoming more and more special. So people will not travel for general surgeries, for example. They will travel for specialized surgeries, right? Because that's what they cannot find locally. So either they can travel for the economic reason or going for specialized surgery, not for general surgeries. Because general surgery is available locally. Why they have to travel anywhere? Supply chain, we're going to talk a little bit more about supply chain. Like in manufacturing or any other industry, you will see, or we have to understand what the supply chain looks like. What are the different elements of that supply chain are to reach to the consumer to understand. If you look into the hospital, you have to understand, okay, where the gloves are manufactured, how they come, how they're used, and then how they're disposed. Same thing from the patient perspective, you have to understand what the supply chain looks like of the patient. Social media, of course, it has become an influencer. Now everybody is on Facebook and Twitter and 20 different accounts. Tomorrow, and next 5 years, there are going to be 50 new social media sites. I mean, I was talking last night with Louis, and they're saying here at the City of Knowledge, I guess there are several social media companies that are coming up. So we don't know which garage is inventing a new media, new technology that's going to change the next wave of thinking, right? Of course, technology has become has been an innovation in technologies, has been integrated. And now, at the global level, again, everything is becoming a playing field. So, what is sustainable model? How we understand all these things, so what? You know, the question is, okay, we are in medical tourism, what do we do? When we look, no matter again what the supply chain looks like, if you, as Andy mentioned before, if you focus your attention to the patient, right, the patient-centric is most important. So if we analyze how and what patient is doing, we have to really think about how patient buys things. It's no different than how we go and buy a car or a clothes or a shoes, right? What we do, we identify a problem, we have a symptom in medical side, we have a symptom, we start researching what solutions are available. Nowadays we are seeing people, before they go to doctor, they look, there's a symptom, they research on the internet before they even start talking to the doctor. They evaluate what the options are, alternatives, so that they can understand their value. They make a purchase decision, whether to see, who to see, what to do, and then they buy it. And then if they have a good experience, they're going to write about it or do something about it. Otherwise, they will move on. So taking that as a basis of our discussions, what do we need to do to meet that basis? Right? This is how a patient thinks. We know that, right? This is how we think. We are no different. We are our own patients, right? We are our own buyers. We are our own consumers. So we are no different than any other patient. So what are the 5 critical elements of sustainability from that perspective? We're going to expand more a little bit on each element. One is strategic planning. One is marketing focus, infrastructure focus, learning focus, and then, of course, last one, but important, revenue focus. Strategic planning. Why do we need this? Why this is a very critical step. 90+% of the businesses who are in medical tourism industry do not have a plan, a business plan for medical tourism. 90+% of the companies do not have a plan. This is worldwide, not only Latin America, but worldwide, 90%. So everybody, we use the phrase of seat of the pants, right? Everybody's just winging it. I want to be in the medical tourism business, let's get into it, and let's do it. When I talk about business planning, it's not about that we need to write a thesis, we need to write a 50-page document. Business plan can be concised into maybe maximum of 2 to 3 pages. Because if you cannot put your thoughts in 2 to 3 pages, you will not be able to implement it. So whatever you want to do, put your thoughts maximum 3 pages. Because if you're not able to do that, then you're not developing action items that can be implemented. Again, you want to do a business plan that you can implement and you can succeed, right? We call findability, there are three concepts I'm going to talk about: findability, sellability, and profitability. The first concept of findability is, how do I find the patient? Patient is just not sitting there and saying, I need medical attention and I'm going to Panama, or I'm going to Turkey, or I'm going to Thailand, or wherever. We have to find the patient. What is the demographics? What is the problem that you're solving for them? Where do they live? They live in America, Canada, or within Latin America or Caribbean, right? We have to really understand the needs of the patients. What is their buying behavior? Where do you fit in that buying cycle that we discussed? Where do you fit in that process? What are the treatment options that are you offering? Are you offering only one thing, or you're saying, no, depending on your case, there could be other alternatives? Because if the patient is going to travel, they're looking for alternatives. If they want one solution, they can sit locally and do it locally. They don't need to travel. Pricing is a major factor. How is your pricing aligned with locally, within the country, regionally, within Latin America, globally? How do you compete? Because that will be a differentiator, right? Because again, remember, my premise in this area is 3 things. Everybody's talking about cost, quality. I'm the best. In order to get away from best, you have to, the comparison will become price. But if you have a different unique value proposition, then you can avoid the price discussion up front. We did a major, so the question still in marketing is, what is the best way to market, right? So we did an extensive study, identify the 6 critical elements of if I'm looking at marketing channel, how do I market my services, what is the best way to market? So we looked into cost of that media. Cost per acquisition means if I'm advertising, for that cost, how much I'm going to get, what I'm going to get, what is the result of it. Exposure, how many people will be exposed to this brand if I'm going to do something about it. How long it will take to that process to work, lead time, right? So I started advertising today when I'm going to see my first patient, lead time in that area. Flexibility, how flexible is that method of marketing in terms of adapting? Suppose I launch a campaign today and I realized that in 30 days that this is the wrong message I'm sending because I'm not getting any hit? How flexible are you to change that message? And how much is going to cost if you change it? Scalability, can I scale it? So if this campaign has been successful, how can I expand on it quickly? How can I scale it? Can I do it easily, or is it going to cost me a huge amount of money to do that? When we evaluated these 6 criteria, the thing is we are looking at is it a sustainable marketing program? Of course, there's a biasness in this area. Online, we looked into online media, insurance, doctors, and all those things. And based on criteria we defined, just to simplify the slide, is low, medium, high. What is the cost, how people will behave in this area to determine what is a sustainable model. And each of you are different. So each criteria based on your target market will be different. So if you analyze what will work for you, some people, for example, we start talking about border discussions between Mexico and US. We tried a lot of things, but billboard was the best solution, or a newspaper advertisement in that border state was the best solution because it gave a lot of exposure. So each entity will have its own channel that will be more suitable. What we recommend is consider 2 or 3 channels so that you're not locked into one channel and put all your resources in one channel. You need to have a diversified portfolio so that one channel can work another way. Then once you have done the marketing, what happens? Fine, we invested some money in the marketing. What happens? Is patient ready to come? Still no. Very critical element of that is customer nurturing. So what happens when you do the marketing, what we call it, you generate a patient interest, you generate a patient lead. Now you have to sell to that lead, correct? Because patient is still not convinced that you are the solution. They may be still evaluating 3 or 4 different solutions. So we have to really think about, again, put yourself in patient's shoes. Will you see an ad and just buy it? Or you may evaluate different options. Same thing, patient is thinking from that perspective. What are the options available? This is where we see a significant gap in the industry. People just send an email out and think patient will come. We are in a human people business, right? It's a human business. So human touch is very, very critical. People need to know who the doctor is going to be. They need to know who the clinic is, how we're going to interact with the clinic. All those things has to happen prior to stepping on the plane, prior to making that decision. So we like it or not, the term is selling. Basically, you're selling your services to a consumer because you're trying to attract, because they don't know about the services. Again, sellability comes also understanding the needs of the patient. Patient needs analysis is there. What, why, where, how, why. Again, the more questions you get answered during that conversation with the patient, the better rapport you have, better customer nurturing you have, a better success you will have, because you will understand the patient. You will design your programs around it. Then comes the profitability. If you do the things right, profitability is a question. But profitability is not only dollars and cents. It's going to be happy customers. We talk about, when customers come back to you, when they refer your friends to you. If you're creating a sustainable medical tourism program, it's not about the first patient who comes to your door. No, you need to think about how you're going to leverage that patient to generate 10 other patients. What is the customer satisfaction looks like? How are they going to refer their friends and families to you? What is the whole program, how it looks like. So one of the key ingredients in medical tourism, the key ingredients, what we consider is integration of 3 things: people, processes, and systems. You need to have the right people in place to manage the program. If you don't have the right people dedicated to the right things, it will not be successful. So if you're thinking about medical tourism, if you're not putting all the elements in place and thinking it's a side business, it will happen, it's not going to be fruitful. Don't do it. You will be a lot of wasting time and money. Have the right people, right processes. Again, process is very critical because you need to understand the whole process, not when the patient arrives in the country, but process starts when the patient first experiences your services, right from the beginning. When you start marketing, what is the process, marketing process? What is the patient coordination process? What is the patient when they're on the ground? So there are a lot of processes. That's where, if you have the right processes in place, that's when you can repeat that business. If you're in surgery, a lot of you are doctors here, do you do everything differently in every surgery? Or do you follow a strict process or protocols when you're doing that? So you have to think about same thing in medical tourism business, where you have to establish a right process, the right set of processes to attack things from that perspective. The last thing in this thing is systems. So what are the systems, for example, in medical tourism? Of course, in the medical scene, you have tools, you have different equipment to help you to perform a good surgery. Similarly, in medical tourism, the systems are, do you have the right applications? Do you have the CRM systems? Do you have patient record management systems? Things like that. Do you have a marketing system that you can track your ROI, return on investment? So you have to think about systems from that perspective. And if you can marry the three things together, the people, the process, and the systems, even one thing fails, you have other to support your processes, your function. So that's why it's going to be very critical to marry the three things together. So the infrastructure thing again is I'm repeating some of these things so that we clearly understand. Developing a consumer-centric program is critical. It's not about me, it's not about the hospital or what you believe in or what you have to offer. It's about the consumer. Again, it's about the consumer. They don't know you. So if you present your hospital not from hospital perspective but from a consumer perspective, and how you're going to solve their problem is what we are looking for. That's what the recipe for success is in medical tourism. Information management. Information management is not only the computer side we are talking about. Is the information consistent across? So if you're talking about I can do this surgery this way, is everybody speaking the same language through the whole chain, whole supply chain? If the doctor is saying this is how you do it, this is how the support staff is doing it, this is how the medical tourism people are doing it, this is how the facilitators are involved, this is the marketing message that you're presenting to your website, everything should be linked together, managing the same information, not different information, same information. Marketing management, very critical. We talk about industry going into mainstream, and without marketing, you cannot create that demand. No matter what you do, you have to create the differentiator. You have to create the demand. Demand is not sitting there just to come. I'm sorry, I may sound harsh here, or maybe biased, but you have to market your services because you're competing in a massive industry. Customer relationship management. Again, how do you manage the relationship with the customer? From not when the patient arrives at the airport, but first touch point. So each touch point you have to think about, and who is controlling that touch point is very important. Do you have a control over the whole supply chain, or you're just managing a small piece of the puzzle? So if you're implementing a medical tourism program, think about this way. Is operational alignment. You can think about you have the program manager for the program. Again, this may sound like 10 different functions, but it is not. If you think things from a different perspective, you can integrate a program cheaply, not very expensively, not very resource intensive. Is your products and services aligned to medical tourism? If you're saying that I'm a general hospital and I do everything, is that the message that a consumer is getting? Or you're giving a message that I am best in cancer treatment and this is why the patient is going to come. This is my center of excellence. Or I can solve kidney stone problem. You go to that level and say, I can do this thing this way at the cheapest price and I want to solve this problem. So moving from generalities to specific is very, very critical. Because when people are looking for a solution, they're not looking for general. They can get that locally. They're looking for specifics, symptoms-based, specific conditions. We could talk to Laura about stem cell. They're trying to solve their problem. They have a diabetes problem. They cannot solve it locally. They have tried all the possible things. They cannot solve it. You have a solution, right? Business process alignment. So once you have defined the products and services that you want to sell in the medical tourism area, what is a support structure looks like? How you're going to educate your consumers and your own staff. Education is a big thing. The more you educate the industry, the more you educate your workforce is a very critical thing. That's when we can create a sustainable business program. Otherwise, it's a half-hearted effort. And then when the program is not successful, people say, this does not work for me. So if you want to dive into the medical tourism, I will recommend you to think more from a perspective that you want to take it long term, not a short term strategy. This is not a quick win that, okay, I give an example of .com era, everybody who came up with the idea went to the VC, got millions of dollars, and everybody had a vision of they will be a billionaire tomorrow, including I, right? I've lived through the era where we had a brilliant idea and we thought by doing this thing, we all will be billionaires tomorrow. But how many companies survived that area? And we are seeing the same trend, exact same trend in this industry. Everybody was focused on the money, but not on the processes and systems. And the same thing happened. Those people just go away. They will not be able to survive the next generation. Some of the key considerations to think about, Andy touched on a lot of them, so I'm going to be fast in this area, is partnership and alliances. Who are your partners? Who are you alliancing? You cannot do yourself. Like when you're building a hospital, you're building a clinic, you are relying on your supply, where your supply is going to come from. Then you're relying on demand. So, and when you're doing the whole supply chain, whether you're thinking or not, what you're doing is you're trying to optimize things between the two areas, right? So you're defining who your partners are going to be to make you successful. So you have to think about in your business, whatever you are doing, whether you're a hospital or a small clinic or a doctor, who is your alliances going to be? What that's going to look like? What is a competitive environment? Who are you competing with? Are you competing with Americans or are you competing among yourself? Or are you competing against Latin American countries or worldwide? Who is your competition? Be realistic. Listen, the worst thing you want to do is do injustice to yourself by thinking that you're competing with Americans. No, you're not. You're competing among yourself, among other medical tourism providers. We talked about 40,000 of them. Understand that. Develop a solution around it so that you can be successful. Supply chain management, we talked about that, how you're going to integrate the supply chain across it. And the last thing is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is still very critical because we have to break the mold that you're used to. We have to, in corporate world, we call it intrapreneurship. Intrapreneurship is if you already have an existing business, you're trying to break the mold and trying to go into a new venture. So you're creating an intrapreneur, means basically you're creating an entrepreneur from within, and then you're going and launching as a new business entity. So basically it's an entrepreneurship within the company. So some of the characteristics we can talk about our entrepreneurs is action-oriented, is change-oriented, that can change the mold that was there to a new mold, right? Because you're going into a new industry. Right now you're serving local population. So from local population to international population is a different mold. We have to really think from that perspective. We have to change, and we need entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship from that perspective. To summarize my points, again, there are 5 things we talked about. Strategic planning, again, is very critical. If you're starting a medical tourism program or you're still in the you have an existing medical tourism program, just sit down for a day. It doesn't have to be a long-term planning exercise that you spend gazillion dollars to come up with a strategic plan. Just simple, one day, sit down. This is what you want to do. This is how you're going to do it. This is what the results you're expecting. something measurable. If you cannot measure, you should not do that activity. Marketing, branding, you have to create the demand. Again, demand is not generic, but specific. The demand that you're going to create has to be very, very specific. We cannot just say, I do everything. No, you have to go very deep into that solution that you're going to provide. Infrastructure, create the people process systems. Learning process, learning focus, very, 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 very critical. Training of your own employees, training of the consumer, because now you're doing a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift is you're moving from I can get my treatment locally to I need to get a treatment abroad. And that process required a lot of education. Not marketing, but education. If you can educate, this program is available, then people will seek it. But if you push that program is available, then they will back off. So more education, the better. Then revenue, of course, we all in this business to make money. That's why you will go in this route. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure nobody wants to take this challenge if they're not going to make money. At the end, it's a business proposition. So it has to be revenue-minded, but revenue-minded has to come from just not making money, but understanding the customers and how we're going to serve the customer is going to be very critical. Just a commercial from Placid Way. Who is Placid Way? Placid Way is a global company. We have about now 7-8 websites. Placid Way is our flagship website. We have just launched 2 new business entities, one in the wellness side and one in the assisted living side, which is another growing demand in this area. We are seeing that we talk to a lot of people living in Panama, also retirees coming in. They have a different business need. We just launched a new side. We have created some regional solutions, as well as global strategic solutions in terms of what we do. Our presence is pretty much worldwide. We have presence in about 30 different countries. We are reaching about 1 million visitors on our sites, and we are working with over 200 medical providers worldwide. So what I would like to do is invite you to create your own competitive advantage for the country, for yourself. So I would like to invite you to explore what's in front of you, customize your solution to where you want to go, and then create an experience that's going to be unparalleled. You know, that's where you're going to see a competitive advantage. So you have to break the old mold of medical tourism. You have to innovate. You have to really innovate in your own way. You have to, whatever we all going to talk about, we're going to talk about our experiences, how you can do these things, but at the end of the day, it's you who's going to innovate, because it has to fit your business model. So I'd like to invite you to think differently, act differently than the traditional way of doing things, even in medical tourism, right? Because there's a new world out there. Which has not been explored. So, thank you very much for listening to me. Any questions I can help answer?